21.3 Ergogenic aids. Before we look deeper into ergogenic aids, you will first need to gain a broad overview of what they actually are, starting with the definition, as it is a technique or substance used for the purpose of enhancing performance. Deciding which ergogenic aids are safe and legal within their sports, governing bodies will submit rulings every season, with the list evolving every season, making it important for athletes to have knowledge of these substances, making sure that they are competing fairly as well as safely. These ergogenic aids have positive impacts within the body, enhancing an athlete's performance. This was put on show when Eliud Kipchoge ran the first sub-2-hour marathon, putting his altitude training to good use. This ergogenic aid allowed him to have a higher blood cell count within his bloodstream, allowing more oxygen to be supplied to the working muscles at one time. This ergogenic aid, however, won't be as effective for an anaerobic athlete, as it only is put to use when using the aerobic energy system. However, these ergogenic aids aren't always this good for you. For example, anabolic steroids giving many athletes symptoms like liver damage and high blood pressure, which also makes it the reason why it is a banned substance in almost every sport, making it a fair as well as safe playing field, not letting athletes gain an upper hand because they will take the risk of causing themselves major health issues. As mentioned, these ergogenic aids are sectioned into different categories depending on the substance and what aspect within the body they creates positive changes to and how it is used. However, they may be cases of one aid appearing in more than one category. Starting with the pharmaceutical ergogenic aids, with this name, it is easy to realize that this category is chemical based, with ergogenic aids like caffeine, anabolic steroids, and more. This group of ergogenic aids will typically be taken to stimulate hormones as well as increase energy levels, working much more intrinsically. However, is tainted by many illegal substances. Moving on to the physiological aids, this category is extrinsic based, with aids like acupuncture, altitude training, and more, all to create adaptations to the body physically. This area of ergogenic aids is filled with many legal methods, however incorporate a couple techniques that aren't legal, like blood doping. Next there is the mechanical aids. This section is filled with different equipment that are used within training sessions as well as games to try and provide the athlete the best possible chance of winning. This will come in the shape of equipment like treadmills, oxygen tents, nasal strips, and much more. As new equipment is always being created, getting better and better in time. This category is completely full of legal equipment to help the athletes perform incredibly as well as safely. Then there are physiological aids, in which are all methods that are used to stimulate the brain's arousal levels. For example, meditation is often used to allow athletes to remain calm under pressurized situations, as well as music often used to increase an athlete's arousal levels, getting them into the zone before an event. Lastly, there is the nutritional category, a section of ergogenic aids that are eaten or drank to enhance the body's performance. For example, carb loading to allow the body to store more energy before an event, or sports drinks to provide a burst of energy to the performer when fatigued. As mentioned, sports governing bodies issue rulings every year, making sure that everyone is up to date as well as has the acquired knowledge of what ergogenic aids are legal and illegal. Each sport or event has their own governing bodies, making sure that these laws are being obeyed as well as respected. These different organisations will have different methods of doing so, however, all will make athletes complete drug tests, although it is not specified when these players might do this, as it could be when the governing bodies are suspicious or even just an irregular occurrence, again with every organisation doing it differently. Examples of these organisations are UK Sports, the IOC, NGBs, and WADA. WADA is the World Anti-Doping Agency, created in 1999 with the aim to have a drug-free sporting world, which was then adopted by 600 sports organisations, one of which was the International Olympic Committee, with the Olympics being at the pinnacle of many athletes' careers. They must do their best to make sure that everyone is competing on a fair playing field. One example of this committee using these drugs tests to prevent illegal ergogenic aids being used within athletics was when Dwayne Chambers was tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs such as anabolic steroids, in which allowed him to train much harder, improving the rate of his gains in muscle. This substance, as the season started, would have been on UK sports doping lists, making sure that athletes know that this is not a safe or legal substance to participate with. Athletes may do this anyway due to pressure to perform, as well as the ability to get more sponsors and money if they were to win. However, this does not excuse the cheating that occurs in almost every sport. I will now be looking at 6 ergogenic aids that fall under all 5 categories. Starting with the pharmaceutical category, caffeine is used by athletes during events in the form of tablets as well as drinks like coffee or energy drinks, like Red Bull. To get the max out of this, they usually do this 2 hours before an event. So when looking at the positive effects of this substance on an athlete, we see that it increases their concentration, clear thinking, increases reaction time, and enhances someone's endurance. With this in mind, we can then think of athletes that would benefit from this caffeine. Endurance athletes like marathon runners due to the enhanced endurance, darts players as they will have a increased concentration, as well as archery, as well, and goalkeepers due to the increased reaction time, which can then help them save faster shots as well as closer shots, helping their team win, as it will then make it harder for the opposition to score. Now looking at the negative effects on caffeine, however, this substance is addictive and therefore makes athletes become reliant on it, as well as fatigue and dizziness after an event. Now, looking at the guidelines and how it is monitored, this substance is not an illegal substance, and therefore the athletes are not given any guidelines to how much they are allowed to have. This is due to the speed in which it departs the athlete's system, as tests would find no trace of the substance after 48 hours of it being taken. As well as this factor, I believe there is also a legal substance because of the regular occurrence it has in drinks. Now looking at the physiological ergogenic aid of blood doping. Blood doping is an extraction of blood from the veins and injected back into the system once the body has regulated, and therefore allows a athlete to have an increased red blood cell count. This is a positive of the ergogenic aid, as it increases the amount of oxygen that is received from the working muscles. Because of this, the athletes that will benefit from this are mainly endurance athletes like cyclists, runners, rowers, and footballers. These athletes will find that they will be able to last longer in their personal events, as they will have more oxygen going to the working muscles. As the red blood cells will then be able to remove the carbon dioxide from the muscles, avoiding the risk of muscle pains and even cramp. This, however, will all come at a cost, with the negatives of this ergogenic aid being that the blood thickens, which then increases the strain upon the heart, a pulmonary embolism, and an increased chance of stroke, all due to the fact that the heart will have to work so much harder to pump the thicker blood around the body. Due to this risk, it then means that this ergogenic aid is completely illegal in every sport. This is then monitored by blood testings frequently, with the testings checking for an increased red blood cell count. When tested positive, the consequences of this are very well known in the cycling world due to the drug cheat in Lance Armstrong, who when caught was banned from cycling for life, as well as stripped of all titles he won during his drug cheating span. This included 7 Tour de France titles as well as 1 Olympic medal. Looking at the next ergogenic aid from a more nutritional standpoint, carb loading is the method in which athletes eat a high amount of carbohydrates the night before an event. This is often done to increase the levels of glycogen within the body, which then can be used as energy further down the line when the body most needs it within the event. Looking at the benefits of this, athletes are able to compete for a longer period of time due to their energy reserve stores that they would have built up the night before. As well as this, athletes will also be able to train more in a day, as they will have more energy to train at a high level for more of the day. Athletes that will benefit from this ergogenic aid are again often endurance athletes, as they require far more energy with them competing for a longer period of time. These athletes will be in the shape of swimmers, cyclists, and marathon runners.